Leo Kale here. Welcome to my watercolor studio. In this video, I will be executing a large 22 by 30 inch watercolor painting on Arches rough paper. It's also known as a full sheet. Glowing luminous watercolor art requires a certain approach with respect to tools and techniques. This is especially true for large full sheet watercolor paintings. This project is the conclusion to a recent important commission project. In a previous video, I created a small practice study of this scene. It is generally a good idea to plan a bit more for large watercolor paintings like this one.
After uploading the small study that was done previously into my iPad, I was able to make some improvements to the scene. This scene from the iPad was then used as reference for the final artwork, as you see here. The digital sketch was then projected using a small digital projector onto my full sheet of watercolor paper, and I'm just adding a few details, finish it up here before I start painting. In a big busy scene like this, I often will dab in some faces for the figures just so I can keep track of them. They're easy to lose once all the paint starts dripping around the scene. The idea here was to reveal the white lettering so as to look like neon signage at the end, but this didn't really work out, so you'll see at the end I have to add some white to the lettering. And here I'm just adding a little bit of the signage and some of the glow of the light from underneath the marquee with some yellow ochre and a big soft brush. This phase of the painting is what I consider my my glow layer. Everything on this layer is intended to kind of glow at the end of the painting process. I was not happy with how cool the painting was, my previous study, so I'm using a much greater amount of warm tones in this final painting to kind of reflect the lights emanating from the marquee. So adding more warm light coming from maybe some of the stores on the opposite side of the street. Shooting across the street. So much of this will be obscured later on, but it's how you think through the process, and sometimes you just kind of think with your brush and put down what you think is going to happen. It doesn't always end up being there at the end. So while this foreground wash is still wet, I'm adding some blue to the bottom. Important to do this while everything's wet. Kind of a wet into wet technique to have a nice smooth, even glow for the asphalt in the foreground. So I guess let you know the point of this video is that for large paintings, and really any size painting, you need to use as large a brush as possible. So many of my students will start a painting and they're using all these small brushes, and it's impossible to create these big glowing washes with small brushes. You just end up with a million brush marks, and that's not how light looks or feels. So very important at this stage to use large brushes and put down a very soft, kind of wet into wet assemblage of hues, so that there's no abrupt brush marks. You just want a very soft, glowing base layer for the rest of the painting, and that's what you'll see me doing here, painting the buildings above the marquee, the rest of the sky. Everything's wet and everything's running into each other. So this will create a nice smooth foundation for the rest of the painting. Okay, cruising along here, adding some more warm undertones for the building above the marquee. The idea here is that the red neon lettering will influence the face of this building. We'll see how that works out, but that was the idea anyway in this initial glow layer. Important to keep working here while everything's wet, so that you don't get any you don't want any hard edges at this point. So everything's wet, working into one another to create a nice, smooth, soft foundation for the rest of this painting. So this initial layer, which I call the glow layer, is essentially done now. After thoroughly drying this layer, I am now moving on to the next level of values, kind of like your middle to middle dark values. Slightly different view here of my workstation, but still using a soft brush. You can see the big squirrel mop, and I am starting to fill in the buildings on the left-hand side. So in a watercolor painting, you are either painting negative space or positive space. So in this particular instance, I am filling in the building on the left-hand side. So I'm really painting a positive shape. You can see I'm getting quite dark here, but this will dry back by 50%. So you have to kind of think ahead to how much it will dry back. So don't be afraid to go a little dark here. Although I'm in no way thinking that these are my darkest darks yet. This is still a translucent layer. So in terms of opacity, this is not an opaque dark layer yet. That will come next. So I'm just moving out the building. It's important not to use the same hues. You'll see me add a little bit of warm, so warm and cool, as I move up the side of this building. You'll also notice that I started painting the shape from the kind of the base painting upwards. By working in this manner, it allows the washes to kind of keep flowing back into themselves. Where if I started at the top, which many artists do, they will start at the top and they work their way down. I prefer to start towards the bottom and work my way up. This way, the successive introductions of hues will just kind of keep settling down into the scene, and I quite like that effect. Okay, so using a combination of burnt sienna and ultramarine blue, I get this kind of blue-gray, very nice combination to use for shadows and for cooling the painting down. So really, that's what's happening at this stage. Is much of the warmth was already down, so now it's about cooling the painting down with shadows. So that's what I'm doing here, using this squirrel, again, a soft brush. I'm still thinking in terms of a wash. Very important that I keep thinking in terms of an interconnected wash at this stage of the game. So more shadows on the street, and you'll see some negative painting here where I'm painting around I'll paint around the pedestrian crosswalk. So this is really negative painting, right? So I'm painting around those shapes to reveal these rectangles on the road. While still very much in this middle value mindset, I'm going to start trying to infer some of the glow coming off the neon signage. But really, that glow will interact with the building itself. So, kind of painting the glow and the building at the same time. Okay, working my way up the signage here. Trying to reveal the white of the lettering. My objective was for the white of this lettering to come across as neon signage. It didn't quite work out that way, but that was a thought process. Neon lighting in a watercolor is a little tricky to do, but there's some things I did at the end that I think will help make it look like neon lettering. But here I'm, completing the kind of positive painting process of the buildings that recede on the right-hand side. So you can see me suggesting buildings in the far distance, working my way up the building now. But again, painting in a very positive mindset, right? I'm painting into positive shapes here. You'll see me starting to introduce a lot of more warm hues to this right-hand side. I wanted to create disparity of the buildings on the right against the buildings on the left. The buildings on the right being very very warm from all the signage. So you'll see a lot more warm hues going down right now to to create more warmth on this side of the painting than there is on the left side of the painting. So I continue to work on the buildings above the marquee, really trying to strengthen them with these middle values right now. Kind of doing a lot of thinking with my brush right now, thinking about how the light's going to affect this face of the building. Re-emphasizing some of the glow of the neon lettering, kind of being a little impressionistic here, and see what happens. So much of watercolor is trial and error. You do what you think you should do, and sometimes it works out, sometimes you have to go back. But you have to really go with your gut, and I just felt like these neon letters would really be emanating a lot of red-orange glow. So that's what you see me adding at this point. So more red orange glow around the neon lettering. I'm using a very small square hair mop. It's one of my favorite brushes. It's I can still create a soft effect, but I have quite a bit more control because of its size. So you'll see me using that, and I'm trying to lift some of the pigment away from the letters here. Paint is very viscous at this point, kind of running everywhere. So just trying to lift some of that pigment off the white lettering. Okay, moving to the bottom of this big painting. I felt like it was a good time to start to introduce some warm hues into my two main figures, my patron and her niece. I will likely go back over these with some darker tones on the next layer, but for right now, I wanted to establish their warm jackets in preparation for the darker hues. Okay, you're going to see me join these two figures together. I think this is a really important concept. I don't like the idea of them being disparate shapes. So this is just an important idea, I think, to combine your figures when you can. So now I'm going to start looking for more of these middle dark values. This is the kind of dark recesses underneath the marquee. I will do a little negative painting here to kind of reveal some of the doorways and entranceways to the theater, and just generally strengthen this area of the painting with some still not darks. I mean, they may look dark, but they'll dry back quite a bit. There was actually some holiday yarding stretched across there. I'm not sure if that'll hold up, but I thought I would fake that in at this point. But again, just darker washes here, going behind the figures, really setting up an area of high contrast for further down the painting where I'll start putting highlights on the figures. I want to have this dark background behind them so that they will stand out. So using more of this middle dark value in the way of a wash, I feel like I need to start strengthening this foreground somewhat. It really faded back quite a bit, as I knew it would, but I think it needs to be strengthened at this point, and it will help. It will help create the feel of light in the mid part of this painting, and it will also help tie my figures to the foreground as I come across the bottom here. This will help to anchor them to the scene. So to create more of the feeling of light on the signage above the marquee, I have to get darker on the buildings to get these signs to pop. This whole stage of these middle darks is really the meat of this painting. The glow layer before was pretty simple, and then the details that'll come later are fairly simple. But this middle value phase of the painting is the most difficult, and really is the meat of the painting, and takes the most time, and I think the most concentration. And a little bit of negative painting. There's a tall, slender Christmas tree above the marquee, so try to paint around it, try to get it to pop a little bit. I'll later add some highlights to it to make it look illuminated. So everything up until this point has been accomplished with these big soft brushes. The idea was to get the big picture, the big idea of the painting down in sort of a soft washy fashion. Everything that will come next will be harder edge, dry brush, details with smaller brushes, but the bulk of the painting was done with the big soft brushes, which was kind of the point of this video. Okay, now I'll start reaching for my smaller brushes, detail brushes. I'm just going to kind of energetically go through this scene, looking for all manner of details: streetlights, flags, American flags, signage, you name it, any little bit of detail. And you also notice that I'm putting the paint down in a rather opaque manner. Opaque details will help come forward in the painting. So where before everything was thought of as a wash, a translucent wash, now I'm really thinking about opacity. So all the details that I'm adding now are really put down in an opaque manner. The opaque details that I'm putting in now are really design flourishes. They're opportunities to bring color to your scene and to also to bring color closer to your focal area. This will draw your viewers' attention in the area that you want them to look at. So, sometimes you have to make things up, make up signage, do whatever you have to do, but don't be afraid to invent some geometric shapes to help draw attention to the to focal area of the painting. Now it's time to start addressing the figures in this scene. And obviously, New York City, lots of figures. There's a real kind of trick to, I hate the word trick, but there's kind of a trick to putting figures in a watercolor painting. I always tell my students that they're not so much people or figures as they are design flourishes. So again, they are nebulous blobs, little head, wispy legs for legs. You never want to paint solid legs, but think of them more as design accents, more so than that you're putting people in your scene. Painting this many people in a scene should really be done in a very much high energy manner. You don't want to spend too much time on any one figure. It's really just an energetic dabbing of masses for bodies and wispiness for legs and whatnot. So learn to do it quickly, because you don't want people focused on all these small figures. You want to, and plus you want them to have energy, a lot of movement. So the quicker you paint them, the more energy they'll have, and the better they'll come across in your final painting. You'll notice that a lot of the figures I'm placing are kind of dark figures, which is kind of in keeping with the New York street scene. But you'll also notice that there's some figures that are light in value, and they're really accomplished by negative painting. So by painting around a shape, you actually infer a shape. So the figures that are in light weren't really painted, were they? They were just they were inferred by painting around them. So you can use negative painting throughout the watercolor process. Something else that's important in these urban street scenes is, if you notice, all the figures are eye level. So pretty much, for the most part, the eyes of each figure are roughly on the same horizontal line. This helps to create great depth in the painting. So the figures in the foreground obviously could become much larger, and the figures farther in the distance are much smaller. So this is a great way to help create depth in a painting, especially in an urban scene like this. Additionally, putting everyone on the same eye line, I really think makes the viewer feel like they're part of the scene. So they almost become, like an eyewitness to the scene. So I think that's a very cool effect. The last part of my process is to come back with some opaque highlights and to catch the tops of heads and shoulders of the figures. This really helps to make them look like figures and helps draw attention to themselves. So it's a great effect. You can easily overdo it. You want to be careful with how many highlights you put in a painting, but I use a color called Wand Brilliant. It's a white and yellow ochre combination sold by, I believe, Holbein, but it's better than a stark titanium white. It's much warmer. So I use it quite a bit at the very last stages of a painting to help draw attention, and it also helped to suggest light in a painting. So nothing wrong with this using opaque paint. I think it's a perfectly valid thing to do, and it works to great effect. Well, I'm pretty happy with the outcome of this painting. I feel like it captures the mood and the ambiance of a holiday evening in New York City. I hope my patron and her niece enjoy the painting for many years to come. So just remember to use the largest, softest brushes you have on a painting like this to create that soft, beautiful, glowing background. And really, that was the point of this video tutorial. If you feel like you got some good value from this tutorial, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up. And if you want to see future tutorials, which I have many planned for this coming year, please hit that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit the little alarm so that you don't miss out on any of my new tutorials. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again on a future video.